All right, welcome everyone. My name is Evan Davis, and I'm the Senior Manager of the Sales Engineering Department here at TRENDnet. And today we're going to go over our TRENDnet Hive. So this is our new easy network cloud management system that we're going to deploy currently for our WebSmart switches, hoping to expand to other product lines as we continue on. But here's just to give you kind of a quick rundown and overview of how TRENDnet Hive works, how you would create an account, and how you would maybe add a device to your TRENDnet Hive for cloud management capabilities. So I like to start out on our TRENDnet Hive page. Here you'll be able to see just kind of quick features and just descriptions of kind of what capabilities you'll get. You can find this at www.trendnet.com/hive. Once you click enter, you'll see this splash page here. And there's lots of different resources that you can use for yourself. Whether it be for sales or maybe you need firmware updates, this is the page that you would go to. So first, I would like to just kind of go over, what switches are compatible. And so one way to figure that out, once you get to this page here, you'll land on the home page. But what we're going to do is we're going to the resources here, which will scroll down to the bottom. You can see we have like pamphlet, spotlight video, spec sheet or data sheet, user guide, and firmware. So we're going to go to firmware just because I want to show you guys the list of compatible switches, and the list will grow as we come out with more WebSmart switches and also expand support for the TRENDnet Hive. So at this page, you can download the TRENDnet device firmware for the Hive compatibility for the switches that you'll find in this drop-down list here. So I'm going to click here, and you can see that we do have non-PoE WebSmart switches. And we can keep scrolling down and you can see the other PoE models that are supported as well. And so for our particular demo, we have a TPE-082WS installed. And so we already have the firmware updated and it's already cloud enabled. But I'll show you what it would look like, when you do update a switch firmware to be Hive compatible, because it does change the user interface. From what you might be familiar to. So once you click on the switch that you need, you'll see the appropriate download file. And what's nice about this download file is you may not be caught up to date on maybe some intermediary firmware updates that you need in order to update to the final Hive firmware. The Hive firmware version right now is v.3 or version 3.01.007, and this is across the board for all of our WebSmart switches. So you need at least that base firmware in order to be Hive compatible and in order to connect it to our TRENDnet Hive cloud. So what I had mentioned earlier is this file will also include previous firmware updates you may need. So just make sure you read the firmware update notes that's also included in the download file, and that'll help you on your way to get the appropriate firmware ready. And so once you have updated your firmware, and I'll show you guys how to do that as well, you'll see a new interface. And so this is what our new interface looks like for our WebSmart switches. So it's much different than you might be familiar with from our previous version. And so with this new version, you get the same capabilities. It just the layout's a little bit different, more user-friendly dashboards and statistics, so you can check out what's going on maybe on PoE utilization or maybe traffic. Maybe you just need a simple IP address. So again, it gives you all the same features that you would have in our previous switch firmware. It's just a more polished GUI and also makes it Hive compatible here. So that being said, once you have updated the firmware and you're on the TRENDnet Hive compatible firmware, we can connect it to the TRENDnet Hive. But I'll kind of back up a little bit because you will receive an email basically giving you instructions on how to activate. So if you're going to go over the steps, how you would attain TRENDnet Hive capabilities and get the licensing, step one is you're going to purchase a license. So you're going to purchase that through your distributor, reseller of any sort. And then once you've made that purchase, we'll send you an email. TRENDnet will send you an email. And we'll send you an activation code and a license key. And so just to go over the activation code and the license key, I'm just going to pause for a second here so I bring up another page that I can show you an example of what the actual email would look like. So if there's some of the stuff a little off, we're still kind of polishing it. So I'm editing a little bit as we speak as well. But I think it should suffice here. So let me move this over here. And there we go. And so this is an example of what a customer would receive after they've purchased their TRENDnet Hive license. So as we go through this email, you'll get the amount of devices that are on the actual they're on the actual license key itself, and the duration, how long that license is valid for. And so this is what we call the license key. So don't confuse that with the activation code. The activation code is what you're going to be using to create your cloud.trendnet.com Hive cloud managed account. So, so keep that noted. And so if you are a first-time user, you will need to use this activation code. If you already have cloud, you already have an account, you can simply just use the license key that we do provide you in this email as well. So that being said, we want to make sure, because we are a first-time user, so we want to make sure we go and create a TRENDnet Hive Pro account. So I know you see a couple different options here. Currently, right now, Pro is the only active option. And so that's what we'll be continuing on with this example. And so we're going to go to cloud.trendnet.com, and that will bring us to our registration page. And so again, let me pause real quick, and I'm going to switch it back over to the web GUI or web management interface so you guys can see what the registration page would look like. And so I have this up here, so let me bring it back up. And there we go. And so you can see we have, your username. So that's going to be unique to this cloud account, not your switch. So again, a unique username, unique password, confirm password, your usual CAPTCHA, your email address that you want associated with this account. And again, you want to make sure you select Pro. So once you select Pro, you will see this activation code here. And then this, again, is where you will bring up your activation code that we emailed you. So again, the first code that you'll use if you're a first-time user is the activation code and not the license code or key. So just keep that in mind. Some people kind of confuse that. So again, activation code, we got that. We're going to cut and paste that. And we're going to go back to our registration page here. So again, we're going to put the activation code in, and then the organization name is up to you. You can change that later if need be within the cloud. So again, it might be you're an installer, maybe an integrator. And so if that's the case, maybe you want to put your company name in there because you might be managing multiple tenants, multiple customers. You might be their network maintenance contact, And so again, organization name can change. So once that's all said and done, we can sign up now. And so once we get that activation, now we can continue on with connecting this, cloud.trendnet.com Hive cloud portal or cloud management system to our actual device that we want to have that cloud management capabilities for. And so let's go back to the email so you guys can get an example of what we're talking about here. And so, okay, I actually forgot to mention this. One thing to note is the cloud can accept 6 to 18 alphanumeric characters. Just make sure you don't exceed 18 because the switch will not accept it. So again, the maximum allowable characters is up to 18, minimum is 6. So we went through some of these steps already, so I'll kind of scroll down as we get to our next stage of setup. And so, again, we've signed up for our account, but now we want to assign a license now from our Hive Pro account that we just activated. We have that license key. So now we want to activate it. We want to add it to the account. And so this is this stage here. So how do I add my license to my Hive Pro account? So after you've logged in, you want to click on the license, and then you want to click on the add license option. And so again, just to give you guys more of a visual representation of what this looks like, I'm going to go back over to the web interface, the Cloud Hive interface. I'm going to log in to my account here. And then let's show you guys where I'm at. So again, I've already skipped a couple steps here, so don't kind of really pay attention to this section here. I just want to show you guys how to navigate to the license, add license. So this is where we will show you the license keys that we have, how many licenses were part of that key. So I might have mentioned this before, but you can have like one license key can have one device, but it can also have 100 devices. And so with this particular license that I added here, there was 3 device licenses. So that's why I added 1, and I get 3 licenses or that I get to issue to a WebSmart switch that's Hive enabled. So that's what this section looks like. Again, once you log in, go to license, add license, and then you can simply add it there. So going back to the email, just to show you guys, trying to go through the instructions kind of step by step so you guys can follow. So once you've added the license, we give you kind of a fake example here. You'll see the license key, the switch, the valid time, status being unused. When that status says unused, that just means it's unassigned. And so you can assign that, to a tenant. And that's kind of our next step as well. So once we've added the licenses, we kind of want to go back to our switch. We want to make sure we prepare our actual switch that's going to be connected to the TRENDnet Hive cloud. We want to make sure that all the IP address settings are set appropriately. So we talked about the firmware update. So we already got that out of the way. Again, you can go to our website, TRENDnet Hive, go to resources, you can go to the firmware, and then you can choose your drop down and select your appropriate firmware there. So we have that stage. And so once we've updated it and followed those instructions, we want to log into the switch, and we want to make sure that we set a static IP address to it. It's not necessary, but we always recommend to set static IP addresses to any type of managed device. So that being said, our example uses the static IP of 192.168.10.200 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. The default username and password for our switch is admin. Obviously, we recommend change that to something more secure if you're deploying this out into the public. And so the next step is to find these settings and input these into the actual switch management page. And so if you can follow me here, I'm going to switch back over. And again, this is going to be a little different from what I showed you before. They look similar, just because the Hive portal looks very similar to our new firmware web GUI or web management interface. So now, just so you know, I'm inside of the switch management interface itself. So I'm not part of cloud. So I'm logging in via its static IP address there. And so what I want to do next is I want to make sure that I go to the, this closed. I want to go to System, and then L3 Feature, and then IPv4 interface. So again, this is going to look a little different, from last time, our last web interface. So this feature is a little different where it's located. So just kind of be aware of that. We do have this in the user guide for the switch. We also have these instructions on how to find this setting in the Hive Cloud instructions as well. So if you're ever lost, we do have the documentation that can help you. So you'll have so once you go to IPv4 interface, you'll already have an entry in there. It'll be the default entry of the switch. So you can edit this or leave it. In our example, we're using the default IP, so I really don't have to do anything. But if you were, you would click on the edit button, and then you would basically change your IP address and subnet mask as needed. And then you want to make sure you click apply. You want to make sure you click save. So again, just kind of have a healthy habit of that. Always apply and save settings. This particular setting will change the IP address of the switch. So if this changed to something other than 200 or whatever the default IP is, you will have to, or it will forward you to that new address. So make sure that your IP address settings on your computer are ready, so that way you can continue managing it. So after we've set in our IP address, again, let's go back to the email. So we've done the IP address and subnet masks, we've hit apply, we've saved our settings. So now the next stage is to actually go to the system L3 feature. And so here we're going to find the IPv4 static/default route. So again, we're going to go to system, we're going to go to L3 feature, I'm going to want to go down now to IPv4 static/default route and click that. Okay, so here the default route should be checked. Your next hop IP address should be your gateway address. So for example, my router's IP is 192.168.10.1. Primary backup status will be primary. Okay. And then we're going to hit apply. Once we hit apply, you will have the route table populate with that entry. So this is very important. So we want to make sure that we put this setting in here. Again, hit save after all this is done. Just, rule of thumb, always just make sure you're saving it. So let's go to the next stage of installation is to set up DNS. So we're going to go to DNS within the web interface. And it's very important that you don't enable cloud. So I know this is yellow and the cloud's not connected yet. If you enable cloud too early, some of these settings will disappear because they become cloud managed only. One of them being that DNS. So make sure you don't mess with the cloud or turn on the cloud before all these steps are done. We're not at that stage yet. So continuing on, again, we're going to go to System, L3 Feature. Actually, we don't have to go to L3 Feature, I'm sorry. System, DNS, it's its own section. And then I put in 8.8, you can put Cloudflare 1.1.1.1, or you can put, Google's 8.8.8.8. Either of those work, or if you have your own favorite DNS server, that's fine too. But this is also a very important step to make sure that's configured. Again, don't forget to hit apply and don't forget to hit save, okay? And then continue on our email, let's go back. And so our next stage is after we set our DNS, and we've saved our settings, now we're ready to register our device to the cloud. So again, we're still within the device's web management page. So again, we're at the 548WS. We're inside its own web management interface. So now the next stage is to go to cloud settings. So there's two ways you can do that. Very simply, you can click on the honeycomb, the Hive logo here, and that'll automatically take you to the cloud settings. If you want to navigate via menu, you go to System and Cloud Settings. All right, so with this stage, we're going to want to simply put in Enable. We want to make sure we select the drop-down registration. And then the username and password is going to be for our Hive user account that we created at the first stage of this setup. So going back, what I want to do is, again, click Enable, and now I get to put in my username and password credentials. Again, this is not for the switch. This is for your TRENDnet Hive cloud account that you created using the activation code on the previous steps. So again, make sure you put in your Hive credentials here. And like I said, apply, and then make sure you click save to save your settings here. And then at that stage, you should see the status saying connect success. So, and the icon should turn green. So let me show you what that looks like, because I have another device set up that's already connected. All right, so this is a different model switch. This is one we have set up for the lab right now. So you'll notice that we have a green Hive logo or icon. So if I click there, you'll also be able to see the message that you're looking for. So again, enable, put your user credentials in, hit apply, and then hopefully you will get that connect success. If not, if you ever have any problems, always check your DNS and your gateway features. So again, with those types of switches, like I said, you want to make sure that all your IP information is set up. So your IPv4 interface, you want to make sure your IPv4 static / default route is set up. And you also want to make sure your DNS is set up. All right. So now let's show you, what are some of the capabilities you can use with the TRENDnet Hive Cloud. And so I'll show you guys one example here. Let me bring back over the Hive. And we'll go over to devices. So once you log into your TRENDnet Hive, you're also going to want to add that device to a tenant. And so if I pause real quick here, I can show you guys continuing on the installation. Going back here, there we go. So now that we've logged in to our Hive account, we want to make sure we assign this device. So we have the licenses activated, we have our cloud account created, the switch is now connected and can see our TRENDnet Hive Cloud. Now the last stage is to assign that device to a tenant or to a customer. And so the first step is we're going to go to device list. So again, I like to show you guys what it actually looks like. So going back to the actual management interface here, we're going to go again, the instructions said device list, and then we're going to have our devices listed there. So this one looks different because it's already set up. So I've already created this TRENDnet tenant, but again, if you are a new customer, you'll already be selected on unused. So if you're a returning customer who's adding more devices, you'll need to click the drop down and go to unused. If you're a new customer, first time user to the cloud, first device, this will already be pre-selected. What's also convenient about that is you will see the device here that's unassigned that you can assign to a particular tenant. So now that we found this, we'll go back to the instructions. And so under the authorized user section, click assign. And so I'm going to zoom in on this so you guys can see a little bit better here. So if you see here, we have this assign button that we can click here. So once you click that, you'll get this drop down window here where it's going to ask you to select the license in the drop down. So that, again, you don't have to re-enter this in. You've already added it to the Hive. So it will be a drop down option in this list. So type, obviously right now, switch, license, select the drop down, select an unused license, and then the device serial number will show here. Click submit, and then now you have added that device to the TRENDnet Hive. So what can you do once you have it there? You can do a lot of stuff. So let me go back to the TRENDnet Hive portal where I have a switch set up. So now that we have assigned a license to this device, now it's ready to be cloud managed. So now it's, we can manage all the different settings that we could through the actual switch's web interface, but now we can do it over the cloud without having to fuss with any type of port forwarding rules. Now this is all done over the cloud automatically. So let's see what that looks like in the actual interface here. So let me switch back over to the web interface itself. And so again, just starting off in the dashboard, you can see that, here's my tenant. So we talked about the tenants before. So these tenants can be, different customers. Again, this type of system caters to like installers and integrators that might have multiple customers, across the state or county. And instead of having to roll a truck out, and spend that time going 20, 30, 40 plus miles back and forth to maybe do a simple setting. Now we can assign devices to each tenant, manage them individually, and take care of things, hopefully remotely, and preventing us from having to roll the truck out to these locations. And so we have our tenants here. So let's go to device list, where we can actually now configure our managed switch settings. And so again, if you're still unused, you might not see it. So make sure that, again, if you created the tenant and you added the license, that you select that tenant up here. And then you'll see, we have it authorized, it's online. And so what you're going to want to pay attention to for actual switch configurations is this operation tab or operation column on the far right. So here, this is where, the meat of your settings are going to be for each switch is this view details. So this is where we're actually going to enter into the switch configuration settings. And it does look different because you're probably used to seeing the switch management options on the left like you see here, but now since this is the cloud and manages multiple devices, it'll look different. So the main part of our settings for each switch is going to be in the right hand side. Just to give you a comparison, you can see that we have drop down lists here, right? Basic configuration, so you can see, and then going back to a non-cloud connected switch, you can see that everything's in the left hand menu. So again, we still get similar features or same features, but it's just broken down differently. The visual representation is a little different in the TRENDnet Hive cloud, which is fine. But again, ease of use, everything's going to be available via the drop-down list. So for example, let's show you where the IP address settings were. L3 feature, IPv4 interface. We click on that, and so you can see here, we can edit our IP address. Let's see what that looks like in the non-cloud version. So again, we can go to system, L3, IPv4 interface. So very similar, right? So again, might look a little different, but all the features will still be there. And so again, this provides huge advantages, especially like with the PoE options that we have too. If I haven't mentioned it before, you'll be able to do things like power cycle PoE devices on a per port basis. And if you're an installer integrator, a lot of times that could bring a device up temporarily, at least until you can get an agent out there, maybe the day or the following day. Sometimes it remedies it just altogether. You might have an access point that froze up or an IP camera that hung up. And so little simple power cycles sometimes are the easiest and most effective troubleshooting methods. And so that's something you can do via this cloud interface. You can even set up scheduling. And like I said, we're going to have more detailed webinars and trainings that show you how to set up alarms and scheduling and do things on a more automated basis. This webinar is more designed to get you kind of up and running. Make sure you guys have understanding of how to create an account. Make sure you guys have understanding how to add that switch and that license to your TRENDnet Hive account so you can manage via the cloud. And that pretty much sums up our training today. Again, just look out for more trainings as we grow our TRENDnet Hive portfolio and also expand any features that you see here. So like always, thank you for attending. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our TRENDnet Tech Talk. And hope to see you guys next time. Have a good one.